I stared at the post-it stuck crookedly to my screen like a careless afterthought. Grace handle the furlough client files. Pick up Dad's suit from the cleaners. That was it. No happy birthday. Not even a question mark. Just commands. Just noise. Just another day in the Radley machine. The lights above buzzed faintly sterile and cold, casting long shadows across the office. I sank into my chair, breath shallow, the flicker of fluorescent light catching the edges of my disappointment. 8 years. 8 years of silence disguised as loyalty devotion, mistaken for invisibility. In this firm, my name only carried weight when someone needed something. They called it legacy. I called it servitude. The door creaked open. Not a knock, never a knock. "Tell me you're not working on your birthday again," Tasha said, walking in like she always did. Like she was the only one in this office who remembered I had a pulse. She held a single cupcake, a lonely spiral candle glinting silver in the dim light. Her voice had that edge, half sarcasm, half sadness. "If your name weren't on the birth certificate, I swear they'd forget you even exist." I smiled barely. My eyes stayed on the candle unmoving. "At least you remembered." She looked at the post-it. "Seriously? Your actual birthday, and they've got you picking up your dad's dry cleaning?" I didn't respond. She already knew. She remembered last year. The day Cynthia Radley, the Empire's matriarch, hailed as a strategic genius through an elaborate cocktail party for New York investors. I'd whispered just once that it was my birthday. Her reply, "Grace, you're 30. Who still celebrates that?" Then came the click of heels, sharp, rehearsed, weaponized. Charlotte, my younger sister, my mother's mirror image in ambition and entitlement minus the tact. She breezed in purse, swinging like a trophy, eyes already rolling. "Grace, Dad wants the furlough file before noon, and Mom says double-check the dinner menu." "Oh." She glanced at the cupcake. "Is it someone's birthday?" Tasha coughed, choking on her coffee. "You can't be serious right now." Charlotte squinted. "Wait, is it Grace's?" She blinked once. "Oh, right. Birthday." "What?" 31. She smirked, casual cruelty etched into every syllable. I nodded. Silent. "Tasha wasn't. She's your sister and you didn't even know?" Charlotte shrugged, unbothered. "I just said it, didn't I?" Anyway, happy birthday. We should totally do dinner sometime." I knew what sometime meant. It meant never unless she needed something. A PowerPoint, fixed alone, covered a lie, cleaned up. She left as quickly as she came, her perfume lingering like bad memory. "Don't forget the file. Dad's on edge." When the door clicked shut, I reached for my phone. No emotion, just numbers. I opened my resale account. Every unopened gift, every misfit dress, every cheap trinket they tossed at me in the name of family sold. Luxury items still in their boxes. Jewelry pawned off as heirlooms but traced to auction giveaways. I never told them. Why would I? They never asked. I turned the laptop toward Tasha, revealing a picture, a private villa perched over glassy turquoise waters. No noise. No family. No Radleys. "What do you think of this place?" I asked, voice calm, controlled. Tasha blinked. "Grace, that place? It's insane. Private butlers. Glass floors. It's..." I clicked book now. The sound echoed like a door slamming shut. "They won't know until I'm already there." I remembered last year too clearly. Cynthia's silver dress, her Instagram post, the caption, "Welcoming Manhattan's finest to the Radley legacy." I remembered watching it from my desk at 10:13 p.m., still fixing Charlotte's data sheet. No toast, no text, no glance. That night, she gave me a silk scarf, still tagged with the firm's logo. Since then, I kept receipts, not just literal ones. Charlotte's too small dress, Mom's recycled handbag, Dad's heirloom bracelet which sold for $4,000 to a collector who said it was a rare piece from a forgotten era. Forgotten. Exactly. But I didn't feel forgotten. I felt free. The earrings had felt like a gesture, a glimmer of acknowledgement after I closed that high-stakes presentation. But when I saw the invoice weeks later, an item listed under a former employee's name, I understood. It was never really a gift. It was a transaction in disguise. Another illusion crafted to maintain the glossy surface of the Radley brand. $2,500 they went for. The sale wasn't vengeance. It was proof. Evidence of how well they played the part of generous benefactors without ever actually giving. In every item I sold, I saw something truer than sentiment neglect rewrapped in luxury. And so, I took photos. Not for memory, but for validation. I existed. I worked. I endured. These weren't keepsakes. They were records. Evidence that I deserved more than whispers and table scraps. I didn't even know what the money was for until I saw it. A single photograph in a quiet blog post, Malu Shores. Floating villas over a blue that looked unreal. Glass floors that poured sunlight into the bedroom like liquid gold. A place designed for people who had nothing to prove, only the capacity to receive. I didn't blink. I didn't scroll. Something inside me, some part long buried beneath quarterly reports and canceled holidays, woke up. The eldest daughter. The one who never left the office. Not when Mom jetted off to Provence. Not when Charlotte sent selfies from Kauai. Not even when the family left me behind to babysit Q4 spreadsheets during Christmas. That was the moment. I booked the flight. Business class. Oceanfront villa. Not a single pause. Private transfer. Personal chef. Sunrise yoga. 14 days. 14 days without the name Radley. 14 days to be no one's employee, no one's fixer, no one's afterthought. Just me. I entered the name Grace Holden. My grandmother's name. The only person who ever told me I didn't have to earn love like a paycheck. I saved the booking details to a hard drive, one not synced with any cloud. I severed ties in silence, disconnected the office calendar, forwarded Charlotte the emails, sent Dad the furlough files encrypted with my birth date as the password. If they wanted access, they'd have to remember the day they never celebrated. Tasha looked up from her desk when I powered down my monitor. Her eyes scanned my face, something wary dancing behind them. Grace, what are you doing? I didn't answer with words. I smiled, a full smile, not polite, not weary. A quiet reclaiming of something I'd forgotten was mine. At 4:30 a.m., I left under the hush of a sleepy California sky. No fanfare, no questions. No one to stop me, because no one had ever looked closely enough to notice I was slipping away. The driver stood waiting, uniformed, white-gloved, stoic. "Ms. Grace Holden," he said, with a small bow. Not Radley. Not them. Just me. I left my company phone in the drawer. I didn't need to silence it. It had never rung for me anyway. I forwarded the project files to Charlotte with a note short enough to sting. "You're better at this than me." The flight to Maui passed like an exhale. 5 hours of weight slowly lifting from my chest. When we landed, a resort guide waited with a sign. Not the main entrance. A private path. A speedboat. By the time I stepped onto Malu Island, I couldn't feel the weight of the past 10 years on my shoulders anymore. My villa waited in silence. Sea-facing, glass walls, smooth stone floors cool against bare feet. On the table, ritual-chilled towel, fresh coconut, a note that said, "Welcome to Malu Shores. If you need anything, call Marcus." Marcus appeared moments later, precisely as promised. Tall, quiet, dressed in clean linen. He bowed. "Ms. Grace, it's a pleasure to serve you during your stay." That first afternoon, I wore a loose cotton dress that moved like the wind. I stretched out on the chaise beside the infinity pool. The ocean stretched endlessly before me, quiet, still infinite. And for the first time in my adult life, I didn't feel useful. I felt free. The sea unfolded before me in waves of emerald and indifference. I lifted my phone, framed the scene legs, crossed at the edge of the chaise, cocktail in hand, the sun casting amber threads across the horizon. My sunglasses caught the light, glinting with a reflection as distant as I felt. They were the same glasses I'd bought after selling Charlotte's abandoned shoes left to gather dust in my trunk for 2 years. A perfect symbol, unworn, unmissed, unwanted. I posted the photo. No geotag, no mentions. Just a caption. Sometimes you have to disappear to find out who's really there. 3 minutes, 12 likes, 10 minutes. 3 texts from Charlotte, 2 missed calls from Mom. An urgent email from Dad titled, "Where are you, Grace?" I locked the phone, turned it face down. That sound, the waves slapping against the villa deck, wasn't just background noise. It was an unfamiliar luxury silence without expectation. No last-minute fire drills disguised as favor. No guilted phone calls about missing shrimp cocktail vendors. No urgent emails that felt more like orders. Just peace. The next morning, I woke not to alarms or Outlook reminders, but to warmth. Light. Marcus had already arranged tea, a rolled towel, and a yoga mat facing the horizon. I stretched slowly, deliberately. For the first time, I moved without obligation. No dictated agenda. No legacy to uphold. Just me listening to a rhythm I hadn't heard in years my own. The phone pulsed again. I ignored it. California was behind by hours, still awake in its chaos. Another text from Mom Charlotte says you ran off. Call me immediately. I didn't. Instead, I photographed my breakfast orchid-shaped fruit, delicate pastries, everything too beautiful to be wasted on panic. Caption, "Welcome to freedom." By noon, Tasha messaged, "They're freaking out. Charlotte just stormed through your office. Mom called the CEO, said you've gone missing. HR's spiraling." I read it in silence, then leaned back into the cushion. Salt air crept over me like a benediction. "Let them panic," I whispered to no one. "They don't miss me. They miss what I did for them." On day 3, the noise grew louder. My disappearance, once inconvenient, became scandalous. Cynthia Radley left 3 voicemails in escalating tones of control and performative concern. The first cold, clipped. "Call me back. This is not the time for childish games." The second, tighter. I had to cancel lunch with the Harringtons. Charlotte sobbing. "She can't open the file." The third, brittle with rage. "You're bringing shame to this family. This is selfish and reckless." I posted another photo. Me on the edge of the dock toes, skimming the sea glass of pineapple juice, nearby reflection of cloud-streaked skies in my shades. Caption, "Not everyone who disappears wants to be found. Some just want to be left alone." Charlotte's message came fast. "What the hell are you doing? Mom is freaking. The company is on fire. Dad's furious. He says the furlough file's locked." "Did you encrypt it?" I replied. "Not locked. Just protected." "What's the password?" I paused, then typed, "My birthday." The typing dots flickered, vanished, then reappeared. Charlotte. "Were you born in June? Or was it April?" I didn't respond. Tasha's message buzzed next. "Update. The whole exec team is in meltdown." Charlotte tried 3 passwords. "Your dad just ordered the security team to pull office camera footage. They're trying to figure out when you left." I smiled, slow and hollow. They still don't know my birthday. Tasha again. Charlotte just screamed, "She was born in summer." "I remember because I was in college," I texted back. Charlotte dropped out after 2 semesters. Tasha bingo. The entire room just lost it. The waves didn't cheer. The sky didn't change. But I felt it a shift. The Radley Empire wasn't cracking because I ran. It cracked because I stopped playing their game. And for once, I wasn't the one holding it together. I didn't know if the tightness in my chest was grief or relief. 8 years. 8 years of showing up early without fail. I never missed a report deadline. Never submitted incomplete data. I'd helped Charlotte pack boxes when she moved out of that overpriced loft, sat beside Mom during her wrist surgery, took Dad's seat at an emergency board meeting while he was stranded on the 10th hole. I showed up when they didn't, but my birthday. Not one of them could recall it. I opened Instagram again. The numbers were climbing, likes, comments, shares. Strangers started noticing what my family never did. Where did Grace go? Didn't her mom just post about family values while her daughter's alone in paradise? Someone had clipped Cynthia's speech from last year's gala, where she'd praised family as the foundation of all success, and overlaid it with a photo of me at the villa, sitting alone by the pool. The caption stung in its simplicity. Some foundation. They forgot their daughter's birthday. I stared at the screen. Their polished image was unraveling quietly, beautifully. Then my phone lit up. Charlotte, FaceTime. I let it ring until the guilt must have started to settle like acid in her throat. Then I picked up. Her face filled the screen, hair unkempt, mascara smudged. "Grace, please, stop this. Mom's crying. Dad's yelling. The company's in chaos and I—" She hesitated, voice cracking. "I'm sorry. I really don't remember your birthday." I raised an eyebrow. "It's okay. I used to pretend it didn't matter either." She wiped at her cheek. "So, what's the password?" I turned my gaze back to the ocean where the sun was bleeding into the sea, all gold and crimson. "It's the date of your engagement photo shoot last year." Charlotte blinked. "That was your birthday." I nodded and ended the call. Later that night, a notification came in from Tasha. "Your mom just posted a childhood photo of you two. Caption: Family is forever." The top comment was brutal. She remembers photos better than her daughter's birthday. I gave a soft laugh, tired but satisfied. I flipped open my notebook. On the margin, Marcus had left a note written in perfect script: tomorrow's itinerary, scuba class, afternoon tea, mochi making session. "Would you like to attend?" I wrote back without hesitation. "Yes, and 1 glass of champagne before dinner, please." I closed the notebook slowly. Everything across the ocean was chaos meetings, files, guilt spirals. But here was stillness. And in that stillness, I found a strange new companion, peace. Near midnight, another message arrived, this time from Seth. "Just saw your poolside photo. Epic. Mom told the relatives you're meditating somewhere with no signal. Also, I just booked a ticket. See you in 72 hours. I smiled. Of all people, Seth. My older brother, the ghost of our family's rebellion. He had never joined the Radley race. He studied design, moved to Seattle, built a life far from this legacy. Dad once called him a dreamer with no future. But Seth never argued. He just distanced himself far enough not to get cut close enough to always keep me in sight. The next morning, my inbox blinked with something unexpected. An email from Violet, our company's head accountant. The one Mom often ignored for wearing shoes that didn't reflect the Radley brand. "Grace," she wrote, "I know this isn't protocol. But I saw your post. You're not crazy. You're just the first one brave enough to stand up." Attached was a file. Internal salary records, 3 years' worth. I opened it slowly, breath caught in my throat. My name, my role, my salary lower than even the interns. No bonus, no recognition, just silence disguised as structure. Charlotte's name, double my salary. Less education, a fraction of my workload. The next sheet was worse. Expense breakdowns, mom's private flights, boutique hotel bills for someone labeled as a VIP partner, beauty appointments, all siphoned through the marketing budget. The numbers told a story no gala could polish. At the bottom, Violet's last words, I've already sent everything to the Department of Labor. If I disappear from the system, you'll know why. Less than 3 hours later, she vanished. Tasha texted seconds after. They just walked Violet out. Your mom lost it. Called her a traitor. But Violet didn't flinch. She left a printed copy of the report on your mom's desk before leaving. I stared at the message, a quiet shiver running down my arms. Legacy wasn't something you inherited. It was something you ended. And sometimes it started with a single person deciding they were no longer afraid. Grace. What did she say? Tasha's voice cracked through the call, sharp and unsteady. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the wine glass in my hand, watching the light fracture across its surface, like something delicate and breaking. Nothing, I finally said. But her face turned red, like someone had pulled a wire loose inside her and let the truth electrocute her pride. That afternoon, Marcus arrived at the tea table with something rare, an envelope slightly crumpled. Someone sent this from the airport, he said, handwritten. I opened it carefully. Inside was a pencil sketch, me reading under the villa terrace, wind tossing my hair back. At the bottom, in faint graphite, freedom looks good on you. I lifted my gaze, and there he was. Seth. Backpack over one shoulder, sunglasses hooked into his collar. He didn't say a word, just smiled and waved. I stood slowly and hugged him tighter than I meant to. As we sat down, he said quietly, This is the first time you've ever done something without asking permission. I poured the tea and looked past him to the edge of the sea. It feels like I don't owe anyone an explanation. He grinned. Welcome to the rest of your life. That evening, we shared a bottle of wine on the balcony as the sun slipped away. Tasha called. This time it was a group chat, and Violet was on the line too. Calm as ever, she said, hot off the press. The Department of Labor confirmed they've launched a formal investigation into Radley and Associates. I set my glass down. That was fast. Violet smiled faintly. I've been preparing for 3 months. You just pressed the detonator, Tasha added. You should know there's a long list of underpaid employees. It wasn't just you, Grace. I exhaled slowly, then opened the video I'd recorded before I left. The orange box on the screen, a Birkin bag. My mother once borrowed it from a client, then passed it to me like it was inheritance. I filmed myself folding it into tissue paper, sealing the sale receipt on top, $1,905. I posted it with a caption. What they didn't need might be exactly what sets you free. By morning, the flood began. Former employees, names I hadn't heard in years. Messages from the quiet ones, the ones who were passed over, silenced, told they weren't a cultural fit. They wrote, "Thank you for doing what we never dared to." I didn't respond to every message, but I read them all. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a ghost in my own life. I was grounded, seen, real. Across the ocean, I knew Mom was re-strategizing like she always did, masking emotion with power. Charlotte was likely on the verge of another meltdown, trying to regain control. But this time, the script was mine. Seth sat nearby, sketching a logo on his laptop, earbuds in. We were building something new, something neither of us had ever been allowed to imagine. I watched him and smiled. The game wasn't over. It had just shifted hands. That afternoon, I sat on the villa balcony with my laptop open and a cocktail sweating beside me. The wind carried a soft chill as the sky dimmed into dusk. Seth stepped outside, his grin familiar and full of mischief. "You sure you want to do this now?" I nodded without blinking. If not today, then never. We sat side by side as the call connected. On screen, the faces appeared: my mother and Silk Face, composed but uneven around the eyes. Charlotte clinging to a glass of juice like it was armor. My father silent, stony. I smiled politely. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. It's sunset here, so let's get to it." They said nothing. Charlotte crossed her arms. Dad leaned back. Mom sat perfectly still, breathing too carefully. I shared my screen. The first tab opened the resale log. Chanel handbag gifted at Christmas but never paid for $2,150. Tech watch Dad forgot about $3,200. Mom's old wedding dress $6,000. Birkin bag from the Boston conference $19,500. Total $46,550. Mom's voice broke. "You kept all of those just to sell them?" I shrugged gently. "I kept them to remember. But when they stopped meaning anything, when they became reminders that I was always the one forgotten, I traded them for something real." Then I opened the second tab. Salary comparison charts. The numbers sat in cold columns. Mine, flat insulting. Charlotte's double despite the glitter and the errors. I looked up slowly. "I can stop here," I said, "or I can keep going." The room remained silent, and for the first time, so did I. I stared at the spreadsheet, the cold numbers glaring back at me. No bonuses, no benefits. Beside my name was Charlotte's, just 2 years into her position, yet already making nearly double what I earned. And on top of that, she had extra perks: beauty treatments, a personal stylist, and image consulting. Charlotte tilted her chin, challenging me. "You think I don't deserve it?" she asked. I met her gaze without hesitation. "It's not that you don't deserve it," I replied calmly. "It's that you never had to earn it to get it." My father's voice cut through the silence, hard and accusing. "You're destroying the family's reputation over a few numbers on a spreadsheet." I leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of his words linger in the air. "No," I replied slowly. "I'm just reassigning value to things that were once dismissed." I clicked to the next tab, my resignation email scheduled to send 5 minutes before this meeting began. "I've withdrawn from the company. The handover files are being sent to Charlotte." Charlotte's face went white, her eyes widening. "You passed everything to me without asking. I can't even open the file." I leaned back further in my chair, the silence stretching. "You still haven't figured out the password," I said, my tone calm, almost amused. My mother interjected, her voice sharp. "Grace, don't be childish. This is serious." I ignored her and clicked over to the last slide, just 4 words. April 14th, my birthday. No one spoke. All 3 of them froze. "Funny, isn't it?" I said softly. "The key to one file is a single date, and none of you, my family, could remember it." Seth raised his coconut water like a toast. "Cheers," he said, his voice steady. I ended the call with a light tap, and the screen went black. The space around me was full of light, and for the first time, I felt something more than the weight of their expectations. Marcus stepped out with 2 place settings. "Dinner's ready. Ms. Grace, would you like more champagne?" I nodded. "Yes, and 1 glass for Seth, too." 1 week later, I stood in the glass-walled office at Maya Shores Resort, looking out at the coastline. On my desk was the employment contract for Regional Investment Director for North America. I had just signed it when Matthew, the resort's general manager, entered with the legal team. "We've just confirmed something interesting," he said. "The Henderson account officially transferred to Malo High Holdings this morning." I nodded. "I spent 3 years building trust with the Hendersons," I said. My mother always dismissed them because they didn't match the brand image, but they never forgot the one who remembered their daughter's name and listened to their risks. Matthew continued, "I'd like you to personally present Maya's sustainable investment strategy to our major regional partners. And I hear you have a bit of a family network we'll need to address." I smiled slightly. "More than a network." The following Monday, I walked into the Radley and Associates boardroom without notice. No one seemed surprised. Rumors had already spread across the trading floor after the Department of Labor investigation made headlines. I entered wearing a sand-colored suit, no logos, no labels, just something simple and perfectly fitting, bought from a local artisan shop in Milia. Seth followed me in carrying a briefcase. My mother sat at the head of the table, poised and ready for a speech. My father's eyes were fixed on me, calculating. Charlotte stood off to the side, scrolling through her phone. The board chairman spoke first. "We invited Ms. Grace here today to present a new strategic partnership proposal between Maya Holdings and Radley and Associates." I stepped forward, plugged my USB into the display. The first slide appeared meaningful growth strategy, not just for clients, but for those who serve them. I didn't look at my parents. I focused on the board, the same people who had nodded and smiled at Gallus, but never once asked what I earned. I continued, "Maya Holdings will relocate the entire Northeast investment portfolio to a unit under my direct management. Major clients like Henderson, Tran McCall, and Heller Group have already agreed to join the new platform, but I wasn't here to dismantle Radley and Associates. I was here to propose a new model of collaboration." The room fell silent. I clicked to the next slide. Partnership terms. Radley and Associates must restructure its senior management team. Cynthia and Charles Radley will be reassigned to strategic advisory roles with no direct executive authority. All salary bonus and promotion policies must be reviewed and standardized under independent oversight from Maya. Finally, I will not return as an employee. I will be a partner or nothing at all. My mother froze. My father's hand lightly tapped the table, his lips pressed tight. "You expect to run the company that belongs to your family?" he asked. I met his gaze, unwavering. "No, I expect to run a company that respects its people. One where everyone earns their place, including me." The room was thick with tension, but I stood my ground. This was no longer about them. The script had changed. And now I was the one holding the pen. I looked him straight in the eye. "I'm not asking for anything. I already left. I only came back to set terms. Whether you accept them, that's up to you." Charlotte stepped forward, about to say something, but no one looked at her. All eyes in the room were glued to the updated performance chart showing that Radley had lost 21% of assets under management within just 3 weeks of my departure. The chairman asked bluntly if we were proceeding with the partnership and who would represent Maya as the lead. I stared at him, unwavering. "I would," I said, my voice steady. A few minutes later, the board began voting 6 in favor, 2 abstained, and 1 against. "My mother." Seth recorded the outcome, his voice firm. "The proposal is approved. Cynthia and Charles Radley are officially reassigned to advisory roles. All executive authority will transfer to the new partner group within 7 days." My father bowed his head. My mother sat motionless, hands clenched around the chair arms. I gathered my documents and walked out of the room without looking back. There was nothing left to explain. For the first time in my life, I walked out of the Radley building without feeling like I carried a weight I couldn't name. I returned to Malu shores on a morning with light drizzle. The sky was soft and gray, and the ocean was calm, as if it had never seen a storm. Seth walked beside me, one hand pulling his suitcase, the other holding a hot cup of coffee. He said nothing, but I knew he understood the lightness in my chest. On the villa deck, Violet was already seated wearing a white linen shirt and working on the financial chart we planned to present at the upcoming resort board meeting. She looked up when she saw me and gave one of her rare smiles. "Welcome home." Inside, Shanice was arranging flowers, truly arranging them not for an event or a VIP guest, just because she liked the scent of white orchids in the morning. And here, no one judged her for that. I sat down my bag and stepped onto the deck, gazing at the coastline before me. A place that once was a refuge now becoming a beginning. No more urgent emails, no more emergency messages, no more pats on the shoulder, followed by turning away like I was background crew in my own life. I stepped into my new office second floor ocean view full glass walls. On the desk sat a new nameplate, Grace Radley Holden, Director of Strategic Investment. I lifted it gently, brushed a fingertip along the edge, then set it down squarely behind me. On the wall was a map of our branch network expanding across California, Oregon, and British Columbia. No Radley name, no legacy to uphold. This was something I built, not something I carried. Seth came around the desk and set a small box in front of me. An official welcome gift from the board and from me. I opened it. A simple wristwatch, matte steel face, nothing flashy. The kind my mother would have flaunted at galas, but inside was a tiny engraving. "You claimed your own." I fastened it gently, no words needed. That afternoon, we sat on the deck as light rain fell. Shanice brought out a tray of ginger tea. Violet was still scanning the reports, but her eyes had softened. Seth adjusted a green investment portfolio for a new client, someone who was once a close family friend, but had quietly transferred their account. After reading the news, I leaned back and listened to the rain on the thatched roof. It felt like every cell in my body was reorganizing. No more defensive tension, no more need to prove myself. I was no longer part of the old system, and I no longer wanted to be a Radley. A week later, financial market headlines read, "Radley and Associates transfers executive control. Multiple major clients confirm withdrawal." The photo showed my mother, Cynthia, standing outside the company building, staring into the distance, refusing to answer questions. My father didn't appear. As for Charlotte, her social media accounts went private 2 days ago. That afternoon, Matthew, the general manager of Maya, invited me to the rooftop glasshouse for a private dinner, a test run for our new investment tasting menu designed for the strategic partners. I would now lead. When I arrived, he pointed to the long table where Seth, Violet, and Shanice were already seated. "I figured you'd want to dine with the real executive family," he said. I pulled out a chair between them and raised my glass of sparkling water. No applause needed, no lavish toasts, just the golden hour light brushing gently across their faces. I looked around. No blood relatives, no inherited ties, just the people who didn't turn their backs when I stood up. And then I realized something small, but undeniable. Family isn't where you're born. Family is who stays when you change. Grace's story isn't just about walking away from a family that dismissed her worth. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes you have to leave the place once called home to truly find yourself. Family isn't defined by blood, but by presence, support, and respect. In a world that often defines women by how well they serve others, Grace chose to rise, take ownership of her story, and redefine success on her own terms. What do you think about Grace's journey and how she redefined family and success? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow this channel for more powerful and emotional stories about family life.